Zero magic, maximum chaos. Everyone in the kingdom of Eldoria had magic except for our protagonist, Arian, and not only was he powerless, he was also attending the prestigious Magic Academy of Eldoria, which was full of power-hungry weirdos. This was definitely not his choice. His mum, the queen, insisted that he needed to learn how to control his magic. But there was just one tiny problem. He didn't have any. From a young age, it was clear that Arian wasn't like other kids. When the royal mage tried to perform the ancient ritual to see if the royal baby had magic, he ended up sending a flock of birds flying out of the window in panic. That was embarrassing, but not exactly proof of immense magical power. So they tried again and again, every time ending up with something getting destroyed, someone getting injured, or in one instance, a giant spider descending from the ceiling. The queen would always tell him, "It's all right, my little lamb, you can take your time." But the king would mumble under his breath, "He better have magic or I'm switching heirs." A few years passed. Arian got a little older, still no magic, but plenty of scars. And his parents decided that it was finally time for him to attend the Magic Academy, even though he was 7 years younger than the other students. Maybe with some professional help, they could get to the bottom of this whole magic situation. On the first day of class, Arian felt all eyes on him when he walked into the classroom. A bunch of students started whispering to each other, pointing fingers. One girl even said out loud, "There's a rumor going around that he has no magic whatsoever." That was true, but why did it matter? Everyone had magic. It was kind of like being the only kid in school who couldn't ride a bike or draw or play the recorder. Yes, it made you stand out, but not necessarily in a good way. The teacher, Madame Delphine, was an old woman who looked like she hadn't bathed in a century. She had wild grey hair, a pointy nose and green skin. Apparently, she was half-elf, which explained a lot. As she approached Arian, her yellow eyes narrowed. "So you're the special guest," she said in a raspy voice. "Let's see what kind of magic you have." She waved her gnarled hand over his head and then screamed in surprise, "Holy Mother of all spells, you have zero magic!" The entire class burst into laughter, and Arian felt his face getting hot with embarrassment. Madame Delphine calmed everyone down and turned back to Arian. "Don't worry, child. There are plenty of jobs in the kingdom where magic is not required. You can be a cobbler, a tailor, a candlestick maker." "But I don't want to be any of those things," Arian blurted out. "I want to be a mage." Everyone laughed again. Even the king and the queen, who had followed Arian to the academy, were shaking their heads in disapproval. Madame Delphine cleared her throat. "Very well. You may stay here and learn alongside the others, but I warn you, you will be in great danger. If anyone finds out that you have no magic, they won't hesitate to use you as an example to show off their own skills. If you want to survive at this academy, you will need to be smarter than the rest of them." And that's exactly what Arian was. It took him a while to get used to being the weakest link, but soon enough he came up with a plan. On the first day of class, he sat quietly and paid attention. During lunch, he observed his classmates, and after school, he would go back to the library to study everything he could about magic. As time went by, Arian became the smartest student in the academy, but everyone thought it was because he was the prince. They didn't know that he spent hours upon hours reading books about every spell and incantation. He learned everything about magic theory, and he could recite every line of every spell. It was like having a cheat code for the game of magical education. But learning about magic was very different from actually doing it. Arian still couldn't make a single spell work, so whenever he had to do some practical exercises, he would enlist the help of other students. At first, they thought it was funny to let him try to cast spells through them, but soon they started taking advantage of him. Whenever they had to read an especially long or complicated spell, they would ask Arian to memorize it and then repeat it after them. Of course, they didn't actually listen to his suggestions on how to improve their spells or become more efficient. After all, he was the powerless prince. How could he possibly know anything about magic? One day, Madame Delphine announced a new assignment. Each student was to research a legendary monster and then capture it using whatever magic they had learned. Arian knew that he wouldn't be able to do this on his own, but he didn't want to ask for help either. So he spent days poring over old grimoires, searching for a monster that was easy to catch. Finally, he found it. There was an obscure legend about a creature called a dust bunny, which apparently enjoyed relaxing in patches of sunlight so much that it never moved. The perfect target for a novice monster hunter. Arian gathered some of his classmates and told them that he wanted to hunt the dust bunny. "You want to waste your time with a stupid myth like that?" sneered Cornelia, the most popular girl in class, whose family had produced 5 archmages. "If you want to capture a real monster, I suggest you start with that." Before Arian could respond, Cornelius had already left the room, followed by the other students. So Arian went to hunt the dust bunny all by himself. He followed the clues from the legends until he arrived in a dark and dusty attic filled with cobwebs and old furniture. Sure enough, in the corner, he saw a small shape relaxing in a patch of sunlight. "So you're the dust bunny," Arian said. The creature opened its eyes, which glowed red in the darkness. Then it pounced. Cornelia's trap was nowhere near as sturdy as Arian's. The dust bunny had easily broken free of it, and now it was attacking Cornelia. "Help!" she cried. "Someone, please help me!" Arian grabbed a nearby broom and charged at the monster. It hissed at him and tried to claw his face, but he dodged and swung the broom again and again until the creature finally retreated into the shadows. Cornelia stared at him in disbelief. You actually caught the dust bunny," she stammered. "How?" "I don't know," Arian shrugged. "I just followed the legend." Suddenly, Madame Delphine appeared beside them. "Excellent work, Arian," she said, beaming with pride. "You have proven yourself to be the greatest monster hunter of your class." And for once, nobody disputed her assessment. Even the king and the queen were impressed by Arian's bravery and quick thinking. They had never seen him use magic, but maybe they didn't need to. Maybe being powerless didn't mean being weak. Maybe sometimes it just meant being a little more clever. From that day on, Arian continued to study hard and use his wits to overcome any obstacle. He never did develop any magical abilities, but he didn't really need them. Because he discovered that there was more than one way to be a powerful mage. Thank you for watching.